Have you ever looked at someone and thought, how could they do something like that? A person who once seemed normal, maybe even kind. Someone who laughed with friends, helped strangers, and lived an ordinary life. And then one day, they do something shocking, cruel, unthinkable. And the first thing we say is simple: they must be a bad person. But psychology asks a much more uncomfortable question. What if they weren't always bad? What if the situation slowly turned them into that person? This is called the Lucifer effect. And once you understand it, you might start seeing human behavior in a completely different way. Because the Lucifer effect suggests something that feels a little scary. Under the right conditions, ordinary people can slowly drift into doing terrible things. Not monsters, not villains from movies, just normal people like you and me. Now imagine this. A group of college students walk into a building for a psychology experiment. They laugh, joke, and talk about weekend plans. Just normal young people living normal lives. But inside the building, something strange happens. The students are randomly divided into two groups. One group becomes prisoners, the other becomes guards. That's it. No acting lessons. No instructions to be cruel. Just a role. At first, everything seems harmless, almost like a game. But within just a couple of days, things begin to change. The guards start speaking louder, their tone becomes harsher, their patience disappears. They begin giving pointless orders, punishing prisoners for tiny mistakes, making them do humiliating tasks. And the prisoners? Something changes in them too. The confident students who walked in just days earlier now look anxious, quiet. Some even begin to break down emotionally. And the most disturbing part? These weren't criminals. These weren't violent people. They were just ordinary students who had stepped into a role. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks. It had to be stopped after 6 days because the behavior had become too cruel. When the guards were interviewed later, many of them said something chilling. I didn't realize I was becoming that kind of person. Think about that for a second. They didn't wake up planning to be cruel. It happened slowly, quietly. The situation changed them. This is the heart of the Lucifer effect. It's the idea that the environment around us can sometimes push normal people toward darkness. And once you notice it, you start seeing small versions of it everywhere. Have you ever seen a calm, polite person suddenly transform in traffic? Normally, they hold doors for strangers, but put them behind a steering wheel and suddenly it's move. What are you doing? Same person, different situation. And suddenly, a completely different personality appears. It sounds funny in small moments like traffic. But when the situation involves power, pressure, and control, the consequences can become much more serious. Psychologists say there are three powerful forces that can push people toward harmful behavior. The first is power without limits. When people feel they have authority and no one is watching, something strange can happen inside the human mind. The small voice that normally says, "This isn't right," starts getting quieter. Not because the person suddenly became evil, but because the rules that usually guide behavior slowly disappear. The second force is group pressure. Humans hate feeling like outsiders. We want to belong. We want to be accepted. So if everyone around us is doing something wrong, the brain starts whispering a dangerous thought. Maybe it's normal. And when something feels normal, people stop questioning it. History has shown again and again that ordinary people can do harmful things simply because everyone else around them is doing the same. And the third force is something even more disturbing. It's called dehumanization. This is when we stop seeing someone as a real human being. Instead of thinking, that's a person with feelings, the brain starts thinking, they're just a number. They're just the enemy. They're just a problem. And once someone stops feeling human in our minds, treating them badly becomes much easier. Empathy fades. And when empathy fades, cruelty can quietly take its place. But here's the part people often miss about the Lucifer effect. It's not just a dark story about human nature. It's actually a warning. Because if situations can push people toward the worst parts of themselves, they can also push people toward the best parts. Think about the opposite environment, a place where kindness is encouraged, where people feel respected, where empathy is normal. In those environments, people often become more patient, more generous, and more compassionate than they expected themselves to be. In other words, the environment around us doesn't just reveal who we are, Sometimes it shapes who we become. And maybe the most powerful lesson from the Lucifer effect is this. Instead of only asking, why do bad people exist? We should start asking a different question. What kind of situations slowly turn good people into someone they never wanted to become? Because when we understand those situations, we gain the power to change them and maybe prevent the next tragedy before it begins. So the next time you see someone behaving terribly, pause for a moment. Yes, personal responsibility matters. But sometimes what you're seeing isn't just a bad person. Sometimes it's a good person who got lost inside a very bad situation. And understanding that truth might be the first step toward building a world that brings out the light in people instead of the darkness.